If somebody wants to understand what is going on in the Middle East, they have to understand the Jewish refugees from Arab countries.
I didn't want to think about all what happened, so I just buried my past.
Everybody already thinks of Jews as white Europeans. Not all Jews are European.
Lulwa Khazoum is the founder of the Jewish Multicultural Project and editor of The Flying Camel, an anthology of writing by Middle Eastern Jewish women. Her father is a refugee from Baghdad.
When I sing traditional Middle Eastern and North African Jewish music, people will often say to me, "It sounds Arabic." And I say to them, you know, we're not called cousins for no reason. What is Middle Eastern North African has come to be known as Arab. And people forget that there are many other indigenous peoples from the region, and the Jews are one of them.
In the year 586 BCE, Babylonian armies destroyed Solomon's temple in Jerusalem and exiled the Jews of Judea to Babylon, modern-day Iraq.
My family is among the Jews who stayed on that land for the next 2,600 years until around 1950. Jews who stayed in the region are known as Mizrahim, which in Hebrew means Easterners. They either stayed on that land of Babylon, as my family did, or they migrated to lands throughout the region, whether it was Iran, whether it was Syria, Lebanon, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, and so on, the entire region.
The Babylonian Jewish Heritage Center near Tel Aviv is a museum established in Israel by Iraqi Jews to commemorate the achievements and destruction of their ancient community.
Now we are in synagogue, which is the very ancient synagogue in Baghdad. And this is part of the museum, which is in the center. It's a very successful museum of the exile.
Mordechai Ben Porat is the museum's founder. Born in Iraq, Ben Porat walked to Jerusalem by foot in 1945. A few years later, he was intimately involved in orchestrating the exit of 120,000 Iraqi Jews. Ben Porat's museum celebrates the accomplishments of the ancient Babylonian rabbis who wrote the Talmud, a collection of Jewish law that shapes Jewish life to this day. The name of one of those ancient rabbis is enshrined today on college campuses all across America, where Jewish student centers are called Hillel, after a rabbi who lived 2,000 years ago in what is today Iraq.
The Jews were about 2,600 years in Iraq, and when they came to Iraq, they came before the Arabs, before the Muslims, of course.
In the year 622, a new religion emerged out of the Arabian Peninsula. Within a few years, Arab Muslim armies had conquered most of the Middle East. Mizrahi Jews found themselves referred to by an Arabic word, dhimmi.
A dhimmi or a dhamma, depending on the pronunciation, is a tolerated people. It's the people of the book, Christians and Jews, people who worship, practice the Bible. And according to Islam, this is a group that's supposed to be protected. What that means is, as Islam conquered the entire Middle East, North African region and killed people in the name of Islam if they would not convert, the Jews and Christians would be spared their lives. However, they always had to be both physically and metaphorically inferior. For example, a Jew could not ride a horse because then his head would be higher than that of a Muslim. Jews could not build a synagogue higher than a mosque.
Even when dhimmi laws were not rigidly enforced, the culture of dhimmi, of minority submission, still shaped attitudes toward Jews.
My grandfather was a very famous lawyer, but he would go to the shuk to buy some food, and the shuk, whoever, the vegetable clerk or whatever, would say to him, "Are you a Jew?" And he would say yes. They would demand his money. If he wouldn't give all of his money, they would beat him up.
When I used to walk in the street, little children used to run after me and throw stones at me and calling me, "You are a Jew, you are a traitor," and they threw stones at only little kids.
In modern Middle Eastern cities, Jews were an integral part of the social fabric. Baghdad in the 1920s, for instance, was nearly 40% Jewish, the New York City of the Middle East.
And I remember very well Baghdad. Remember the river? My family used to live in northern Baghdad. It was a very nice neighborhood, and we had very good relations with the neighbors. The Jews of Iraq, they served the state of Iraq very much, more than any other minority in Iraq. The first finance minister was a Jew.
I think my father was a very special case because he wasn't really even considered as a Jew by most of his Muslim friends. He was an Iraqi first and foremost. He was not only really very much knowledgeable about Judaism, but also about Quran, and he could cite many surahs from the Quran, and he understood very well the Quran.
When Muslim was invited to Jews for Saturday, he said, for Chunt, Tibet we called it, it was very honored to that Muslim that she was invited to Jews.
My parents left Iraq around the 50s. I was born here in Israel in the Middle East. I consider myself as a Judeo-Arab, belong to the Judeo-Arab people.
World music artist Yair Dalal preserves and reinterprets Iraqi Jewish music. He learned this art form from Jewish musicians who fled from Baghdad to Israel in the 1950s. Dalal shares his passion with other Israelis and tours worldwide.
I was 2 months ago in Germany for a peace concert. And I met 3 young musicians from Baghdad. They ran away, they escaped. It was in Cologne. They escaped to Cologne from Iraq. And we started to sing and play, and I played the violin and the oud. And after the concert, they came to the stage like with full of enthusiasm and tears in their eyes. He said, my father, he's a musician. He always taught me, if you want to study to play good music, to play well, go to the Jews. Study from the Jews how to play. And he said, tonight I'm going to call him to Baghdad and to tell him, I found Jewish young people that play your music.
I listen a lot to Iraqi music. I read in Arabic. We cook the same food that we used to cook in Iraq. So I'm very much Iraqi as well. And this is the problem, because on the one hand, I have a lot of affection for the Iraqi people, but on the other hand, I am very much hurt by what happened to us in Iraq.
Haj Amin al-Husseini, the Palestinian Mufti, was meeting with the Fuhrer himself, with Hitler, and proposed a final solution to the Jews throughout the Middle East and North Africa. And the Hitler, of course, was delighted.
In 1940, Haj Amin al-Husseini was the most prominent leader of the Palestinian Arabs and the head of the Arab Higher Committee, the central political organization of the Arabs of Palestine. He and Hitler discussed plans to establish concentration camps in the Middle East. He delivered a radio address to the Arab world on Nazi radio saying, "Arabs, rise as one man and fight for your sacred rights. Kill the Jews wherever you find them." His words reverberated across the Middle East.
In Iraq, in the 1930s, you had the pro-Nazi government, which led to the Farhud in 1941, in which Jews were completely massacred. What happened was that the mobs went rioting through the Jewish ghetto. They would pull babies apart from their limbs till they broke. They would rape women and daughters in front of the families.
They pulled the Jew among all passengers in the bus. Who is the Jew? And they did the Jew out, they killed them outside the bus. Or they entered the houses and they looted. The Jews run from roof to roof. In Baghdad, you know, the houses are close, are very close, and you can run on the roof. Some of the neighbors of the Jews, they were with those who attacked their neighbors, with the police, and they killed, they looted, and that's what they did, and they forgot all the friendship.
Throughout Libya, Egypt, you know, all these different countries, Syria, you hear all of these instances of riots leading to torture, massacre of Jews.
When I witnessed the persecution, the hatred within the school and within the neighborhood, within the city, within the country of Iraqis, I came into decision, and my mother, my parents also, that country wasn't so our country, and we had to leave.
In 1969, Saddam Hussein began his rise to power. As a show of force, he arranged for a public hanging of 9 Jews in the middle of Baghdad. 500,000 people attended the hangings.
And it was shown all over the world on TV, and there were masses of people there singing and dancing, you know, around the bodies. In 1972, it was on the eve of Yom Kippur. After receiving really such sad letters from my father, that he felt so lonely, and he was really hoping that, you know, he get a passport and join us. We heard that he was actually abducted on his way to the synagogue, and we don't know until today what happened to him exactly. We didn't really have Kaddish for my father throughout these years.
The persecution of the governments of Arab countries made the Jews in Arab countries desire to leave their origin country, but they didn't how, because no country was ready to receive them. So when the State of Israel was established, suddenly we have a shelter, and the Jews came to Israel.
The fledgling Israeli government had little money and faced a war declared on it by 7 of its Arab neighbors. Still, 680,000 Mizrahi refugees were taken in and settled in temporary refugee camps called Ma'abarot. They huddled in tents that could barely keep out the rain and mud.
They were put into tents, wooden huts. More than 10 years, those Jews were in tents as refugees.
My grandmother,
The Iraqi Jews are hardworking people. They are very well educated, and they were in the first line in the Iraqi economy. So, in a way, they shifted all their skills to the Israeli efforts to establish a good economy and a good society.
After Jews fled Iraqi Kurdistan in 1955, this synagogue was turned into a mosque. A dirt road was built over this old Jewish cemetery, with foot traffic exposing Jewish graves. Vibrant Middle Eastern communities that once numbered in the hundreds of thousands are no more. All told, nearly 1 million Jews have fled Arab countries and Iran, and hundreds of Jewish communities have been ethnically cleansed.
If I say, who are the Middle East refugees, people don't think at all about the Jews. All the people think about are the Palestinians.
101 of those resolutions dealt with refugees, but all those 101 resolutions dealt with Palestinian refugees only. It's astonishing to realize that not one resolution, not one of these resolutions ever dealt with the issue of Jewish refugees from Arab lands.
So it was change of population between the Jews and the Arabs. Both of them were refugees.
I think the only path to peace is when people can open their hearts and listen to the stories of everyone involved. And this means both the positive things, the points of connection between Arabs and Jews, where there's an overlap of culture, and also the points of oppression.
We are here, Jews from all over the world. We are not just from Europe. And this is our culture. And we have to transfer it to the next generation. It's part of our life. It's part of Judaism.
Only when the state of Israel, this is the only shelter, open its gate, we have the shelter, we have the house, our house in Israel, and I am many proud, much proud to be Israeli, much proud my grandchildren, grandsons, granddaughter, all of them are serving the army, and they are contributing to the state of Israel as a whole. I wish that the peace takes place between us, between the neighbors.
We were really the forgotten refugees, and nobody talked about us. And, we were really humiliated, and we didn't get much attention also. So we swallowed our pain and agony and moved on. On the one hand, it actually improved our situation in integrating in the Israeli society and establishing a new life. But on the other hand, we felt like a great injustice has been done to us.
What's important to me is that the stories of everybody be told, and that everybody's history be recognized and everybody's rights be honored.